How's it going, YouTube? Anime Bar Lounge, back with Corey. We're going to be talking about summertime rendering.
Ah, yes. Rendering in the summertime.
I didn't know that the rendering was going to be a relevant word of the title until like halfway into the show. This is a hard one to rate. I would argue it's the hardest one to rate of all the ones we watched. For me, at least. Because I liked what I watched. But it was a different show by the end than what it was at the start and what it was in the middle.
That's my inherent issue with it as well. I never was bored by this. I was never disentertained, but I definitely feel that I didn't like the second half anywhere near as much as the first.
See, for me, it was the issue that, like, I felt like I was watching two different shows. I liked them about the same, but I liked them for different reasons.
I think I have a very big issue with mystery shows when it hits, like, the climax. Because there's a lot of shows like this. Promised Neverland's a good example, where I love the build-up, but once it started revealing what happened and what was the inner workings of its world, I started to kind of tune out. And this happened with Summertime Rendering as well, but it was more so because it kind of tilted more into the shonen area.
Oh, absolutely. It got very action-y.
It got much of a fighting anime, and that wasn't what I liked about it at the first half. I didn't dislike it or anything because the characters are awesome, but
yeah,
it did start to tilt in one direction.
I want it that way. That's a different boy band. A better boy band though, so
True.
got him. Yeah, I mean, I like the main character. I thought the main character was super interesting. And I like looping animes. It's a guilty pleasure. You could write the shittiest looping anime of all time, but I'm going to out myself. Some of my favorite shows are ReZero. It's Tokyo Revengers. Your boy likes Oops, I Died and Woke Up and Was Still Okay. And now I'm back in time.
I really like Shinpei, and I very much like how proactive he is in dealing with the loop.
Yeah.
He's genuinely pretty damn smart, because just the way he works things out, I felt a lot more engaged because I felt like he could actually make decent progress every time.
And you got to hear what his thought process was a lot of the time. And there's other powers in the show, but it comes close, but I never felt like there was a Deus Ex Machina moment. Usually things were explained, and then they jumped, like, in loops of logic. But they had done the work before, so that you could be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I get that.
I was shown, like, there's something in the manga that, like, there's, like, a big layout that has him having written down what happened in every loop, and you can literally go back and read and be like, oh, no, like, literally, you can see that in the panels.
Yeah.
So, pretty damn sure you could do it in the anime as well.
Probably.
It's very well paced and very well planned out in that.
I would say the show is very well paced overall, but I don't feel like the show could have been solved properly as 13 episodes, but I think it was 25 episodes?
It was 25, yeah.
I feel like you could have cut out 2 or 3 episodes and it would have actually made it better. Somewhere towards the end, I felt like it was padding
There was maybe
out.
a bit too many loops at the end, I felt. Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's interesting because it starts as a bit of a mystery. Shinpei moved away from a small island community in Japan. So you're expecting, like, a community of literally only 700 people. Fucking baby numbers in terms of, like, building a community. But, you know, it gives that nice small homey vibes, which you get. You get pretty intimately attached to the characters.
Yep.
And then trouble in Tokyo, except this isn't Tokyo, arises because, you know, there's a whodunit scenario where people start getting stabbed and that's no good, and you're like, who's doing the stabbing? And it starts looking like, oh shit, it's the people we knew, loved, and cared about. And you don't want the people you know, love, and caring about stabbing you.
He establishes pretty quick that it's a doppelganger-like phenomenon.
Yeah.
And he's there because his sibling, he lived with 2 girls, so it's essentially his adopted sister, had died. So he goes back for her funeral, and that's why he's there.
Yeah, so, you know, you go back for a funeral, but then turns out there's some people doing this little stabby stab, and it turns out it's doppelgangers, and yeah, it tends to be a little confusing when that happens.
And they build from there really nicely, just...
Yeah, I love pretty much all the characters in this show. Like, a weak character in this show would be, like, a decently well-written character in a different show.
For sure, absolutely.
Like, and a lot of the characters here have defining traits and have strengths, and I feel like by the time you finish the show, like, both men and women. Like there's no gender discriminatory here. A lot of the women are the stronger characters in the show.
Oh, for sure,
And,
yeah,
like, you know, no
And
ageism.
it gets really into their psyche as well.
Oh yeah,
Like Mio learns a lot from her own shadow version.
yeah.
Ushio herself is just an extremely well written character all around.
The novelist is a very cool character.
As well, yeah. Nagumo's a very cool character. As
She
well.
has an alter ego that is inside of her. That's like her.
I'd argue in a lot of ways like you said, a lot of them were better written than some of the male characters as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, she's a bit of a weird one to rate because part of her is insider for person.
She's basically split personality, so.
And then the old dude's super cool too.
The old dude's really cool too, yeah.
So, yeah. I was worried because I could tell I liked the mystery hook, but I could tell they were building. I might be wrong here, but I could tell this was going to become a shonen anime before I think you did, because around episode
I had inklings, but
Yeah.
it only really came because of the shonen ass opening with a bunch of fighting in it. So
I would say mine came around like episode 7 or 8.
that's probably right about where the like big murder fest happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once it started entering supernatural territory, I did very much have that worry.
Yeah.
And that's because that's just how that goes in all of those type of things. Once you go supernatural, you have to do the fight. There's no
Yeah.
other way of getting out of that.
And I liked the confrontations, of which there were many. Like, there are several points where the only reason you know it's not going to end is because there's more episodes, but there's many points where the heroes confront the villains, and you're like, oh, man, we're getting a lot of groundwork done here. All that, you know, to have it come up and...
I liked a lot of those latter fights, but the thing that was missing for me was that I found the villains very disengaging. I didn't really... I found them intimidating. Especially Shide, I found to be very intimidating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Holy
but it was
shit.
kind of to his detriment at times, because I just didn't find him that interesting as a villain. They came across way too much as, like, this is the ultimate evil, and there's no real in-between. So
I found it an interesting plot twist when they revealed that Sheed was basically Aizen in terms of it was all according to his Keikaku the whole time.
Mhm.
But I felt it also came at a bit of a detriment because, what was her name?
Hane.
Hane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like it made more sense when Hane was the villain and Shide was the puppet, because Hane was always the more interesting character to begin with.
Absolutely.
When you swapped that and made Shide the mastermind, Shide was never thematically more interesting as a character. So he had huge shoes to fill, and he didn't fill them. He was still a threat, which meant, you know, we still have to overcome this, and I still felt satisfied when we beat him. But similar to why I'm comparing him to Aizen from Bleach is that when you beat him, it's like, oh, cool, we beat him, but I never got enough to make the character interesting on a character level to feel like we did something.
It is a really, really similar type of thing, too.
Yeah.
Even with Hane, because there was more between Hane and Nagumo than there was with Hane and Shinpei. So that kind of does go a long way towards why the villains just didn't really click for me. I liked them, but...
Hane had a wonderful design, too, and I'm probably only partially saying that because I really like Mozu from Toho. I love that fucking Fire Mario red-white aesthetic.
She was very well voice acted, too. Like,
Yeah.
the way that voice actress can scream,
Yeah.
like, my God.
And I'm glad
that is
that
disconcerting.
she gets redeemed, because while it means that towards the final part, I kind of hate when shows do this, but I also like it as like a guilty pleasure, I guess. By the end of the show, the only villain is a character that is not well written, and all the heroes are well written. And that's kind of rough, because that means that when you beat the villain, it feels like you're done, but then it's also like, well, like, I like gray villains. Like, I would have liked Shide to have a motive that wasn't just a big bad evil dude.
Yeah.
It's not that plots that are big bad evil dude are bad, it's just that they're never really going to be put on, like, the thematic pedestal. I wish they were.
Even before anything had happened, just from a general standpoint, I thought Shide's design was kind of lackluster, because he just looks like a normal big brute enemy in any video game that you would see. So him being, like, he's intimidating, obviously, because
really
he's so much more strong, but for me it just didn't click. So
I really liked his design. I felt like he felt very antagonistic. I felt like they could have upped it a little as it went on, and I mean they technically did.
They did, yeah.
But like
the Heine baby on his shoulder was freaky as hell.
oh yeah, dude, literal
Freaky
nightmare
as
fuel.
Literal nightmare fuel.
Which I really liked the general aesthetics of the show, and like I liked a lot of the placements. You get to really know the island by the time you're done. And the mystery never goes away. I mean, there's a little underground corner of the island that we explore that's terrifying. I would never want to go through that in my entire life.
Sure.
And then you literally, like, when you confront Hane in the final climax, you go to basically a nightmare fuel alternate dimension where time has stopped, which means none of the characters can use their relevant powers effectively. And that's scary.
The powers themselves are very interesting as well. I love that Ushio has essentially Shantae hair whips.
That on crack because you're like, holy shit, that bitch was wild.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, like the final area they fight in is literal nightmare fuel. Like I felt like the moon was falling in Majora's Mask and we had like 10 minutes to fight the big bad. That was like the level of like tension and climax they had built. Like I was not comfortable being there. I was like, we need to beat this dude and we need to do it now.
You gotta go.
And then that dude when he showed up was like, it's World War II. Here are planes. And I'm like, no, things are getting bad.
This is not okay.
And we beat the planes by forgetting about them.
Woo! Let's repress our memories.
Oh yeah, it was a good show. It's hard, I will admit, to carry a mystery from beginning, middle, and end, especially one that's like twice as long as a normal anime. I think it was good. I might even go so far to say it was great, but it was great with some missed footing here and there.
For sure, yeah. How did you feel about that final episode, the one that was essentially an epilogue?
Like the one that like kind of rewrit a lot of what we had seen from like the beginning?
It was kind of a reset. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it in a cheesy way. It felt like it was just retouching everything we saw and making it. It felt like it felt cheesy in the fact that it felt like the perfect ending. It was taking everything you had already seen and showing what happens when
resolving all the issues, essentially pairing Ushio and Shinpei off like they were meant to be, and like it's just I'm not sure how it connects to the rest of it, because going from episode 24 to episode 25. It's kind of a weird experience.
Well, I liked it from showing what it was like without the Shadows' influence, because if you knew what all the Shadows did, you got to kind of see that shit. Like, he was worried Mio was going to flip because her brakes were cut out in the first episode. But you find out that the Shadows were the one that cut the brake, so of course, even though Shinpei's worried, like, no, you're gonna...
But he also doesn't remember anything. So he doesn't even know why he's trying to stop them from doing these things.
But I mean, like, they don't remember anything, but they remember... They have
it's instinct.
They have, like, that trauma instinct where they remember, but they don't remember. Sort of deal.
It's just going from that 24th to 25th. I didn't really understand how we got from there to there, but... I didn't really have to at that point, because the main conflict was over, and this was just a nice little epilogue to be like, here's some happy ending for you.
I felt really sad when the Hane / I forget what her alter ego was, like the little baby thing was crying because she wanted to like not deal with this anymore, so like they like freed the whale, and then she was like, yay, I don't have to do that again.
yeah.
But like that was sad shit, and like the epilogue basically comes after that, and I guess it's basically saying like you didn't let the whale curse you and all the inhabitants with this awful...
Because they essentially went back in time,
Yeah, so it was cheesy, but like it was a good ending otherwise. Like it didn't make it made me feel good overall.
Yeah, I was very happy with the ending. This wasn't like a reset, like a full hit the button reset type of thing, so...
I feel like if you paid attention to the show and you saw everything, while it's a little cheesy and maybe a little convenient, you at least know why they get their happy ending. So it's not like...
I feel like with how much they built up Ushio and made her pretty much the standout character of that show, it would have been really... They would have been playing with fire whether they had left it as is, as to her just, nope, she's still dead, or it's hard to do that at that point, especially when you build it all around a character that's supposed to be dead. That's why the detective's already dead failed.
Overall, good. Probably
great potentially.
Great potentially. I have a hard time rating this one. A lot of my shows fall around the same area for this season. So Summertime's in this weird boat where like if I ignore all the negatives, it probably stands on the highest, or maybe tied with the Edge Runners, which is funny because they both have the most flaws out of all the shows. Which means if I add in the flaws, they might be lower than the other shows. But I feel like if you're not someone to get hung up on flaws, or maybe, like, there's probably some plot holes that my brain...
In time loop stories, you can't
Yeah.
avoid at least one plot hole.
I just go monkey brain on these
Yeah.
shows. I go hee hee ha ha, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time, it felt like they had ways to, like, justify why something didn't make sense, or it felt like it was properly explained. Overall, I really love this fucking show. And
The show's got one big downside, and that's the fact that it's not streaming anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah, which is true.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know we both watched it super legally, so that's good.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a VPN and everything.
But yeah, anything else to say on...
It's a great show, and I enjoyed it.
Hey, me too.
Wow.
So go watch it if you haven't already. That was our thoughts on Summertime Rendering. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that stupid YouTube shit. Thank you. Take it easy. We'll catch you next time.